Hello and welcome back to EIHL Draft Class. Today we will be looking at the 1986 draft. This was back when the NHL draft still had 12 rounds and the league only had 21 teams. This year, the Detroit Red Wings had the first overall pick and they selected forward Joe Murphy. Some other notable NHL stars were members of this draft class, such as Adam Graves, Teppo Numminen, Brian Leach and Vincent Damphousse. However, with this series, it's the EIHLers we're focused on, and you're spoilt for players in this episode as we've gone from 1 player to 5, so let's get into the ranking. At number 5 we have Slovakian forward Ivan Matulik. Similarly to Mike Ware in the last episode, Matulik is more well known for his playing days before the EIHL existed. From 1993 to 2003, he had brief stops with the Sheffield Steelers, Edinburgh Racers and the Manchester Storm, but the majority of his UK career was spent with the Cardiff Devils. Also like Mike Ware, his first and last EIHL season was also the league's debut season in 2003-04. Although the Devils didn't come away with any silverware that year, Matulik did have himself a solid season, scoring 38 points in 56 games, whilst also racking up 120 penalty minutes, which was the highest number of penalty minutes in a single season of his career. After being taken 147th overall, Matulik unfortunately never reached the heights of the NHL, but he did captain the Devils for 4 seasons in the Super League, winning a playoff championship in that time span. At number 4 is Canadian winger Brent Bobyck. Bobyck was drafted 78th overall by the Montreal Canadiens and continues the trend of playing in the UK mainly before the EIHL existed. He had spells with the Peterborough Pirates, Bracknell Bees and Manchester Storm. Bobyck also spent 4 seasons with the Nottingham Panthers in the Super League, but it was with the Sheffield Steelers who he played his EIHL games with. His second EIHL season amounted to just 2 games, so we will be focusing mainly on his first season in 2003-04. In that year, he played 55 games, recording 16 goals and 35 assists, combining for 51 points, and he also had 60 penalty minutes. In that same season, he won a league title and a playoff championship with the Steelers, putting himself in EIHL history as a member of the first league-winning team. Bobyck would also play 9 games for the Great British national team from 1998 through to 2000. Coming out of the 12th round is number 3, Canadian defenseman Rob Wilson. Wilson spent his playing years in the UK with many different teams before the EIHL's first season, such as the Swindon Wildcats, Sheffield Steelers, Telford Tigers, Newcastle Jesters and the Manchester Storm. However, after just 6 games in his second season with the Storm, he moved to the club he would see out the rest of his career with, the Newcastle Vipers. He was a part of the Vipers' first ever team in the Elite League, that very special team that went on to win the 2006 playoffs. Wilson played 149 games through Newcastle's first 4 seasons in the EIHL, scoring 78 points, which really shows the impressive two-way game he brought to whatever team he played for. He played 34 games for the GB national team throughout his career, scoring an amazing 33 points on the international stage. Wilson was also the player coach for the Vipers from 2003 to 2009 and spent his first year of retirement as the head coach, before expanding his work into Europe, and as of 2023, he has just finished his 5th season as the head coach of the OHL's Peterborough Petes. In the number 2 spot, we have Steelers legend, Rocket Ron Shudra. In total, he spent 12 seasons with the Sheffield Steelers in their journey through 5 different leagues, and even during his 3 seasons in the EIHL, he showed that age was not catching up to him, as he was still one of the more impactful defenders in the league. A resume of 124 games played, 17 goals and 61 assists, combining for 78 points, boasting a .63 points per game average. This stat line is even more impressive when you take into account Shudra was a defender in the latter stages of his career. Shudra was drafted 63rd overall by the Edmonton Oilers and played 10 games for the Oilers in the 1987-88 NHL season, registering 5 assists and a plus-minus of +5. Shudra did the double with the Steelers in 2004, winning the league title and playoff championship. In March 2010, 1 year after retiring from playing, the Steelers would honour Shudra and have his number 26 retired by the team. That same year, he would also go on to be inducted into the British Ice Hockey Hall of Fame. Ron Shudra is a legend of Sheffield ice hockey and still continues to work within that very community, as he has just finished his second season as assistant coach for the Sheffield Titans of the EIHL 2. As good as Shudra was though, there was no way anyone else was taking the number 1 spot on this list. With a nickname like the Scottish Gretzky, it's pretty obvious that Tony Hand is at the top of this list. The story of Tony Hand is an incredible one. The first British player to be drafted into the NHL, he was taken with the final pick in the draft by the Edmonton Oilers, and in his draft year at the age of just 19, he registered 79 goals and 85 assists for 164 points in just 32 games for the BHL's Murrayfield Racers, who he had played for since his career began in 1981 when he was just 14. After being drafted by the Oilers, he lasted all 14 days of Edmonton's training camp without being cut, and remember, he's playing alongside players like Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier. Head coach Glenn Sather offered him a contract to play junior hockey in Canada, but Hand turned it down due to him feeling homesick. But he did play 3 games for the WHL's Victoria Cougars, scoring 8 points. After returning home, he went back to the Racers and casually scored 216 points in 35 games. Yes, you heard that correctly. He would also play out the rest of his career in the UK, spending seasons in the Super League with the Racers, Sheffield Steelers and also the Ayr Scottish Eagles. He would also play for the Dundee Stars and Edinburgh Capitals before finally coming to the EIHL in the 2004-05 season with the Belfast Giants. He would return to Edinburgh the next season and then would play with the Manchester Phoenix until his retirement in 2015, coaching them in their last 3 years in the EIHL. He scored 298 points in 229 games through his 5 seasons in the league, and bear in mind that Hand was in his late 30s during these years, so he was far from his prime, yet remained one of the best players in the league. Hand is probably the most important player in British ice hockey history and is a true legend of the sport. Thank you very much for watching this second edition of EIHL Draft Class. I did promise that future episodes would be a lot more interesting and there'd be more players. Anyway, thank you once again for watching, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.